Hello, everybody. My name is Caleb WH, and welcome to my corner of the internet. I wanted to talk to you guys about something today, a kind of rant, if you will. This is going to be a relatively difficult video for me to make, not necessarily because of the substance of the video, although that will be difficult in and of itself, but the articulation I'm going to have to try to convey in this video. As of currently writing, it has been 3 years since I started inquiring into the Orthodox Faith, and it is my 6-month anniversary, let's put it that way, since being chrismated into the Orthodox Church. I love it here. I have not been happier in my entire life. I'm doing much better than, the dark portions of my life, but I wanted to make a video on something as a kind of sober comfort to people watching my story, that listen to my story and have read some of my books or something. This is a video about my struggles coming into Orthodoxy, some of my struggles as an Orthodox Christian that I hope will be edifying for people that are struggling with their faith, because I know that's a common occurrence. I have a feeling that is a common occurrence among people, that people who enter into this religion tend to struggle with their faith, and so for about a couple minutes, I wanted to tell you guys about some of my biggest struggles coming into the faith, because I feel like this would be therapeutic and edifying for me, but I think it would be doubly so for you. I have a few struggles. Despite the demeanor and the online presence that I give off, I'm not some perfect teacher. I'm by no means a teacher. I am a wretch. And thanks be to God that I'm working out my salvation every single day here on this planet. I was given a second chance at life, and I do not plan on tearing that to shreds. First and foremost, I think it is an interesting place to start with one of my more interesting issues that I think would be apparent. So as you guys know, I grew up a Church of Christ, a dogmatic religious boy. And I dealt with huge amounts of hedonistic spurts when I was 11 and 12. And later in my teenage years, I had to slowly kind of peel off of a lot of my hedonistic tendencies. And there were some days that they got pretty horrible. But coming into the faith, coming into the Orthodox faith, all of those problems have not necessarily gone away. I still struggle with things like gluttony and lust. Those are my biggest issues as a Christian. And the reason that I'm so honest and open about my experiences with those types of things is because I really, truly don't believe that it'll get fixed if somebody doesn't get on the internet and says, hey, this is happening, here's how it's happening, here's why it's wrong. Perhaps in my talking about the subject, I have been perhaps too open. There is a fear that I have that I may have scandalized people in my writings on chastity and my testimony video. But I believe that it would be remiss if I didn't mention it. I feel like I would be worse off if I didn't mention it. Those problems especially are something that I deal with on a daily basis. However, I have gotten, since being received, much better at it. There is progress. It is slow progress, but it is progress. I mention in the testimony video that I'm not clean from either of those sins, and I'll probably be struggling with it for years to come. But when I signed up for this religion, I signed up for Christ, not because I wanted to be perfect. My hope is that after my life confession and after years of repentance, that I will be worthy to even sweep the floors in heaven, if that makes sense. So that's one of my biggest existential struggles, and there you go. You can have that information if you want it. I understand if some of you may think, oh, this guy is talking about religion, he shouldn't be involved in sin. It's like, there would be no one in ministry, by the way, if that was true. Sin is prevalent in everyone. And just because a person is in ministry doesn't mean that they've got it all figured out. I'm not in ministry. I yap on the internet. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a priest. I have a blessing from my priest to do these videos and write these things, and I will continue to use that until either the blessing, like somebody tells me to delete something, etc., etc. Just so you know, I have like counsel to be able to make these videos. My goal is to be far more open with my priest about what I write and how I talk on the internet, because I can be a bit theatrical and off my rocker. But just so you know, that is the first big struggle that I've had. I've kind of felt like when I discuss as radically anti-pornography and radically anti-hedonism as I am in my articles and in my videos, sometimes I feel like I'm living a double life. But just because I do something wrong does not mean that it isn't wrong. If that makes sense. Just because I struggle with something doesn't mean it isn't wrong. I'd be the first to tell you that I am not perfect in that regard. I grew up, having the stuff happen to me that happened to me, has been very difficult, and acting on certain hedonistic premises has been also very difficult on me. And I could sit here and list my entire laundry list of evil things that I have done as a human being. We'd be here for 11 hours, and I'm not going to do that, largely because I believe it would be unsubstantive. If it would help someone, I would do it, but I think it would hurt far more people than it would help. So I will refrain from doing that. My second big struggle that I had as a Christian, that I still have as a Christian, is my raging anger at authority. It's bad. It's one of my worst, especially because of the denomination that I've chosen, which is an extremely hierarchical religion. I have a lot of trouble with church authority and stuff like that. I've been able to comfort myself by saying that the church is a hospital, which it is. But there are some things, especially bad priests, that grind my gears when I hear about them. I am regularly given to bouts of anger. Wrath is a huge sin of mine, but anger specifically is a sin that I fall into periodically. And bad authority figures do it for me. It's probably the worst anger that I experience is things like that. I figured I would mention that for the sake of my publication, is it deals with a lot of these themes. I write about these themes a lot. It's one of the prime reasons that I am Orthodox, is because of one of the biggest stretchers of Roman Catholicism for me wasn't even the Filioque, it was the papacy, to give you an idea. And that's about as honest as I can be about it. But I'm very thankful to be Orthodox, and but there are some like hierarchical beliefs in my religion that I still have a hard time with. How we treat bishops when we come into the church, and the way that church hierarchy works, the way spiritual fathers work, is still very difficult for me. It still is. It's one of the biggest existential difficulties about my faith. One of the reasons, and we'll get to this in a second, and I'll be far more open about it in a second, but one of the reasons I'm so devoted to that icon of Christ in particular is because of that issue. And the first one, to be completely honest with you. One of the third big issue that I have had has been with my family. Um, my relationship with my mother did not somehow just get better. My relationship with my grandparents has slightly soured over my religious beliefs. My grandmother is devoutly Church of Christ more than my mom is, and had a big problem with me converting to Orthodoxy, and so did my mother. And so much so that when I was first inquiring into the faith, they would not drive me to church, even though I had a renewed sense of faith. And my mom knew that I was more angsty at her church and didn't want to go to her church. But when I offered to go to another one, she got very, she would not take me to church and would not take me to church for close to a year. She eventually got around to coming to get me from church, but she would never take me there. And that is still difficult and breaks my heart, that she thinks that I'm somehow farther away from God and Christ. That's a big struggle that I've had. Another big struggle that I've had is I have a twin brother, and me and my twin brother are extremely close. He is actually in the Assembly Discord server. He is a valued member there, and we love him. A big struggle that I have had is we've been very open with each other about how different our beliefs are. I have gotten I have genuinely there is a part of me that thinks if you guys knew about my brother, that you guys would have a problem with me. And that makes me very angry. But I even reference him in a couple books that I've written. He is very, very important to me. I disagree with his metaphysical beliefs on things, but knowing how controversial his dice roll was, and knowing that he, growing up in the environment that we did, got it much, much worse than I did, has made it difficult. He lives in my house, and he has very, very different religious beliefs than me, to kind of an alarming degree, but he is in my house, and that's kind of an interesting thing to navigate. Me being an Orthodox Christian, if you have a neo-pagan in your house, actually it's not really neo-paganism, it's technically an esoteric tradition. It would be it's kind of a difficult, as you can imagine, it'd be an interesting set of prayers you do at night. That's a joke, but but I deeply care about him, and I mean, he's gotten it far worse than I have, and I have no claim to the sufferings that he has gone through. So if you're watching this, if you're in the Assembly Discord server, hey bro, glad you're watching this. Hi. And I love you. But yeah, that's those difficulties coming into the faith, with knowing that people have different opinions than me, and knowing that my tendencies and my beliefs are kind of like the last thing you would expect from a new convert to this religion. Nobody expects the fundamentalist to go to one of the most conservative denominations in the world, but it happened. And I kind of deal with this impostor syndrome, like I'm not here, like I'm not in the right place, even though I'm in the exactly correct place, and I should have that. I should have that faith. It's difficult though, even with having a religious experience and believing in the supernatural, and having people that I know who've experienced the supernatural far more intimately than I have. I still deal with my bits of skepticism. And this is something I'll probably deal with my whole life. Orthodox people, surprisingly, from what I've noticed, are extremely skeptical. When I told them my story, they were very, very skeptical of how I ended up here. And I get it. I get why they would be skeptical. You have to deal with prelest. You have to deal with the fact that your thoughts are technically sometimes not your own. Sometimes it is your thoughts and you're deluding yourself. And that barbed wire is very difficult to walk as a Christian. I tend to notice that I am the happiest when I am in liturgy and in Vespers. But yeah, it's been difficult. introducing my friends to the faith has been novel, but it has been difficult. I have a friend who is very, very attached to me in particular. He is in the Assembly Discord server as well, who has been inquiring into the faith. And I'm trying to take him as often as I can, but sometimes I fear that the reason that he's getting involved in the faith is because of me. And I don't want that. I want it to be because of him. And so introducing people to the faith has been really difficult, especially given my past. It seems like I'd be the last person to be Orthodox, like given my story. It almost doesn't make sense when I think about it for long enough. A bruised kid over hierarchy gets involved in the Orthodox Church, which is one of the most hierarchical Christian denominations. It's very difficult, and but it is worthwhile, I think. Those are the big ones. I'm trying to think of anything else. I deal with as I said, I've talked about my dealings with sins on here previously, but I deal with bouts of anger. I don't really think I have convertitis. If anything, I'm just enthusiastic about the faith. I'm not really like pushy or zealous about it, I guess. Most people who know me have noticed that I have changed remarkably since converting. I'm very glad that Christ has had that grace in my life. Yeah, I was a wretch. Sometimes I feel bad even talking about the faith, because of, how screwed up I was back then. Sometimes I feel horrible, even talking about the faith. It's no secret that I was an it back then, and I could sit here and go on a tirade about my sins, but that isn't substantive. So as we're here, and now that I've dumped my silly little trauma on you, I wanted to talk to you guys about something, and I think this will mark the halfway point of this video. Let me place this right here real quick. I'll be right back. Just going right here. In my Icon Corner video, I talk about this icon of Christ. This is the Bridegroom Icon of Christ. It was a clarification in the 15th century of the trial and scourging of Christ. Christ is given velvet and scarlet robes and brought before Pilate and is scourged twice. In both accounts of this moment, in all four accounts of the Gospels, they can't agree. Well, actually, they can agree that they're velvet robes, but in this depiction, they're scarlet, and they're scarlet because of the blood that he shed. And so, I've always wondered why they're not purple, but that's a side tangent. As a former hedonist, angry skeptic, this icon has always been very important to me. In particular, I have always found it to be comforting to me. In particular, this is the icon of Christ that I use regularly in evening prayers. I have a Pantocrator up there that my sponsor gave me, and I've talked about it before. But this icon, I hope, will never leave me. I want to keep this icon for the rest of my life. Because this is when I had my religious experience in the bathroom, this was the way, this is the kind of countenance that he presented himself with. Sweetness, tenderness, something not in any way judgmental, even though I, of all people, deserved that. But there was a kind of like parental aspect to it, that he loved me and that he cared. And so I'm extremely devoted to this icon of Christ in particular. It's the symbol of my publication. It's the cover of the Wretched Psalter. And that's for a reason. Every part of my life story every part of my life story seems to point back to this icon of Christ in particular. When I was younger, Christ was kind of shown off as this like whitewashed figure. I can scarcely remember people talking about the trial and scourging. I can remember talking about the crucifixion. I can remember people talking about the resurrection, but for the life of me, I cannot remember a sermon in all 16 years that I was attending that Church of Christ church. I cannot remember something on the trial and scourging. But it's extremely important to me, and every single Sunday of Orthodoxy, I take this one with me. Sometimes I think that I'm unsalvageable. Sometimes I feel accused of my own sins, and I always remember this icon every single time that happens. It helps me conceptualize that I'm not too far gone, and that no one is. I hope when I die that I will have presented a good enough case to God, as if such a thing is even possible. I hope that I will have spent my life in repentance and prayer, and I hope that when I get up there, I'll recognize him. Oh man, I'm getting emotional talking about this. We're not doing that. I'm not going to cry on this publication, but yeah. Let me put this back up. But just know he's in the background, and that is on purpose. Yeah. Let me. There we go. Sometimes I talk about all the things that have been difficult for me, but choosing that icon in particular has been something really helpful for me. The liturgy is a godsend. Going to liturgy and standing with a kind of trial of my peers is and worshiping God is beautiful. I know that everyone in there has probably done far worse than me. Actually, no, that's prideful. We're all the worst of sinners. Wow, that was kind of strange of me to say, but like, we all are broken in. We're all broken in different ways. None of us are beyond saving. That is really nice until you extrapolate that to like the worst of people, and then it becomes far more scandalous. I think about the fact that there are people in prison that have probably raped people, have hurt people, have killed people that will be saved at the day of judgment, like a murderer, a rapist. People like that will be saved, but what is that conception but our conception of law? This earthly sense of law rather than divine law. Because if we judge the world by divine law, the world would demand annihilation. But having the liturgy, being able to commune, is really helpful. I have found fasting particularly difficult. As a glutton, fasting is one of the most difficult facets of the Christian life for me. But the thing that I enjoy the most, like the prescription that I enjoy the most, from the liturgy is the prescription that I enjoy the most from the Orthodox Church is almsgiving. And honestly, there are members of my family who are not even Orthodox that are far better at almsgiving than me, but I do enjoy it. Because I know what it's like to be the village outcast. And I know that many of you watching this know what that's like. And one of my biggest kind of weird things that I have difficulty. Well, it's not really difficulty. In many ways, it's a blessing. But my ability to be scandalized has been firmly shot. I think honestly, like seeing something in real life would be far more difficult for me to bear, but difficult for me to bear, but but I am very unable to be scandalized. I mean, I've heard testimonies of psychopaths who killed people and did statutory rape and pedophilia and stuff turn to Jesus. I don't think it's impossible for people like that to turn to God. I don't think anyone is beyond saving. As mentioned before, it's kind of hard to be scandalized it's kind of hard to be scandalized when you've been dealing with a pornography addiction for 8 years. But it's also extremely difficult to be scandalized when you know people who have done many a sin, and you know yourself who has also done many a sin. And I can be repulsed by certain sins, but I hardly find myself scandalized by certain things. I don't feel an urge to push people away, and I think that's a good thing. I think there have been people in the assembly who, both honorary members and normal members, who have told me you don't know what I did, and I'm like, no, but I can assure you I've done much worse. But you don't know what I did, and it's like, you could, like, I'm just saying, like, they could tell me anything at this point, and I'd still want to give them what Christ gave me. In many ways, that's a blessing, but it also makes me extremely gullible, in some capacities. I think my kindness is sometimes sometimes imprudent, and but I try not to think about that too much, because I'm afraid that will make me scrupulous. So I try to be kind regardless. So struggles are not emblematic of they're not something that, I don't struggle with. Like, everyone, if you were to ask any Orthodox Christian on the planet, they'd probably have a litany of things to tell you, and those are just mine. I make this video for the express purpose of telling people what Christ has done for me. Like, the whole litany of things that I've told you are things still that I deal with, but I still do my prayers. I still go to church. I do my prayers as best as I can, but I do go to church. Having scripture and the lives of the saints is something beautiful. Reading about the lives of the saints especially is very fun for me, specifically because I'm a history nerd, and the lives in the Synacts are very beautiful. My patron saint is St. Lawrence of Rome, and I regularly ask for his intercession. He's probably one of the go-to saints because he's my patron. He's one of my go-tos when I ask for saintly intercession. Him and the Theotokos. Scripture readings, having like a lectionary where I can just read like one section of the Bible every single day is very useful. And I look at myself 3 years ago, almost 4, and I look at myself now, and the difference is insane. The difference is cataclysmic, almost. And I hope that continues. I hope that I am not the prodigal son, but if I do, I hope that Christ will receive me in that. It's interesting because one of the big issues I sometimes have with the faith Those are my big struggles. Those are the things that help me personally. I enjoy how tactile the Orthodox faith is. I enjoy the fact that we have icons, we have candles, we have incense. I enjoy how sensory the Orthodox faith is as an autistic man. That's one of the big parts that I enjoy about it. The lights, the sounds, the colors, all of that I enjoy. And those things make the faith far easier for me. Having like a visual representation in front of your face every day that you wake up in the morning. Every time you go to church, there's something in front of you that speaks to you, if that makes sense. Christ has done so much in only 3 years, and I'm still a wretch, but I'm getting better. I'm not a good person by any stretch of the imagination. No one is, but I am. It would be wrong for me to sit here in front of you and not say that I am the worst of sinners, because my salvation is my own. And I hope that when I get up to the pearly gates that I will recognize him. And I want him to recognize me. It's beautiful to know that there are 2,000 years of people, and some of them probably had, let's call it, a rap sheet longer than mine. Some of the people are far, far holier than me, but to know that all of us are saved by grace, and the works that we do are there's a synergy there, is really, really helpful for me. Sometimes I go to bed at night and I feel accused of sins that I have committed, especially back when I was a teenager. But sometimes I feel that way about sins like that circulate even when I'm still am an Orthodox Christian, and I get sick inside when I think about it, like racked with this guilt, but I have to recognize that God is loving, God is forgiving, and he will forgive me. There's no sin he cannot untwist. I forgive me, by the way, if I have scandalized any of you with this wording of mine. That was not my intention. In fact, it was the exact opposite. I wanted you to understand that this is common, that this random guy from the Orthodox Faith a random guy from Texas in Orthodoxy is far from the only one who deals with struggles. There's a hymn that I think I'll close off on, that is sung on Holy Monday and Tuesday that I often think about in regards to my difficulties. And that would be, Alleluia, behold the bridegroom comes at midnight. Blessed is the servant that he will find watching. Stand arise. And stand arise and say, holy, 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 Lord God. I think about that hymn a lot. It's one of my favorites, personally. And he came and got me. It's been 3 years, and these 3 years have been difficult. This religion asks you to die. And, stop. Sorry, I'm telling myself that. This religion really does ask you to die. And it's beautiful, but it's horrible at the same time. And, priests and monks deal with it far worse than I could ever claim to deal with that. But, it's a beautiful faith. And, I think about how lucky I got, because I could have ended up a basement dwelling redditor. I could have chosen to negotiate my way. I could have chosen to negotiate with the evil that I know that I'm capable of. I could have chosen to Raskolnikov my way out, and who knows what monster I could have become. And But I say all of this to camera, hopefully that it will touch someone in the audience. Maybe someone needed to know that they weren't crazy. Maybe someone needed to know that they're worthy of Christ, no matter how demented they are. Maybe someone needed to know that in this audience. And maybe understanding my struggles and maybe understanding how I've come to be helped by the faith will help you in some way. And I hope that this video has been edifying for you. Feel free to check out my socials, my Substack. I wrote an article today on Exodus 16 and chastity that I think you will enjoy. I have a Twitter where I have all of my half-baked ramblings and dumb jokes that I like to tell and things that I do on the side. And yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I hope that this video has served for your edification, and I really do hope that the Lord blesses you and keeps you, and I hope that, to put it in the most poetic way possible, I hope that you are watching the bridegroom when he comes. God bless you, and thank you guys for watching.